If you are trying to use Notion for task management, you might have come up against the challenge of trying to do recurring tasks. Notion doesn't really have a good built-in mechanism for doing this, and this is why you'll probably see tons of different YouTube videos on how to handle recurring tasks, and they all look completely different. I figured, since I keep seeing it come up a lot in different forums and people ask how to do this, I'm going to share my method. There are some pros and cons to doing it. I think it's really simple and it works for my needs. And I do have a template that you can download so you can see if it works for you. But I'm going to walk you through how it works. It's based on an automation, so you will need a paid account in order to do this. I'm going to share my main Today page, which is where I handle all of my task management. It's probably the page that I spend 90% of my time in Notion on. All of my databases, all of my tasks, my journal, everything is available on this page. On the left-hand side is my journal. On the right-hand side is my task database. I have a few different views set up for myself, including one that shows all of my routine tasks, things that I have to do on a regular frequency, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, etc. So all of these tasks are going to show up in my list here. All of these dotted circles are basically my routine tasks. We can see that all of these routines are marked for April 15th, which is today. Let's say I've done my inbox and I've cleared that out. I'm going to click this checkbox and it's gone. I'm clicking water the plants. Let's say I did that. You can see it flashed for a little second there, but this is basically a status property that I'm marking as done. So those things are complete. You can see this one's overdue. So let's say I'm doing that right now. Okay. Now let's hop over to this view, which is basically my routine tasks grouped by their frequency. You'll notice I clicked clear inbox. That now has a date of April 16th, and it's no longer marked as complete. And same here, answer community questions. If I mark that as complete, well, let's watch the automation. That's now been marked for tomorrow, and its status changes from complete to not complete. Let's say April 1st. Ooh, tidy the house. That one's pretty overdue. So if I click completed, let's watch the automation run. That changed to the 16th. So what's happening here behind the scenes? Let's take a look at this automation. There's an automation called recurring task automation, and this is all available in the template. I'll share the link with you below. But what is happening is I'm setting a trigger so that when a status is marked as done, the owner contains me, and the task type is set to routine. First things first, I want to define some variables. Let's open this up so you can see what these are. So I have a property called frequency. So any routine task in my database is given a frequency, and I'm defining what each of those means. So if the frequency is daily, what I want to do is translate that into days added to the calendar. And I'm also adding a little bit of a check such that if, for example, a task is marked as daily, but the date is maybe weeks in the past, I don't only want to add one day. I actually want to catch it up to today, and then I want to add a day to it. So there's a bit of a check happening there, but otherwise I'm basically defining what each of these means. Daily is going to add 1 day, weekly is going to add 7 days, etc. And I'm doing that for every frequency. So that's my new date variable. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking the thing that was marked as complete and I'm now setting the status back to incomplete and saying it's due now. And then I'm setting that date to that value that I defined. And then I'm clearing the completed at date. So this is what's happening to any tasks that are set as routine, which are these here. And so I'm grouping these by their frequency. Grouped by frequency. And so I've got one for each of these different frequencies. So let's take a look at the recurring task demo. So I've got a sample database for you here. You can see it in a couple different ways. I've set up a number of different views so you could kind of get an idea of how you might want to handle this. You may want to see your routine items in a separate way, right? You want to see only your routine items. Maybe you want to see all of your tasks, regardless of if they're one-off or they are routine items. So there's a couple different views here for you. And let's take a look. Let's, for example, change the date on this to the 9th. It's overdue. If I click complete, let's see what happens. Make sure it's actually working. Great. So that is scheduled for tomorrow. Same with, I'm curious how this will work if the date is in the future. Okay, so it's reassigned it to tomorrow. So this is one way to have one single item in your database that represents that recurring item. One of the drawbacks of using this method means that you don't have individual instances of this on your calendar like you would if you were doing a recurring item in your Google Calendar. It's like a recurring event. For the purposes of just getting things done, I don't need to track this stuff. I don't necessarily need it in that fashion. It's a nice way to keep your databases clean, for example, so you don't have daily review like 100 versions of this, or thousands, because that's going to add up pretty quickly. So this is one way to kind of mitigate that database clutter, and you're just kind of resetting the item so that you're able to quickly check it off. So similarly here, I can say weekly check-in. Let's check all of those as done, and that should reset to 1 week later. In some cases, some of these may have a specific day of the week that they need to get done. So you can say the frequency is weekly, and then maybe it's weekly on Tuesday or weekly on Wednesday. So you've got some options there. The automation is exactly the same as I'm using in my own database. If the frequency contains any of these and the status is set to complete, the only thing that's not in here is if the owner is me. You can always add that. The defined variables are here. And we reset the status to not started. If you want to reset that to a different one, you can change up your properties, and then we're setting the date to the date add here. So there's some instructions here for you that kind of walk you through it, and you might find it helpful to set up some buttons to kind of batch reset your dates and your overdue recurring dates and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, I think this method has been pretty easy for me. Like, I don't even think about it. They're just mixed up with my regular tasks, and things get dated to the date that they need to be seen. Or if I'm not sure and I want to jump in and kind of see what all my different daily, weekly, bi-weekly activities are, I can come in here anytime. I can add new ones. Everything should be there for you to give this a shot. I think it's one of the easier methods, but it isn't necessarily ideal if you do need a record of when those things were done. If you were going to do that method, I would probably set up another automation that would add to a log. So anytime I click that off, it would set it into like household routines or something like that, and add the date when it was completed and how long it took, etc. But for my use day to day, I think this is one of the simpler ways to do recurring tasks. I hope that helps. Happy to answer any questions in the chat. Thanks for watching.